Okay. Well, no worries. We will record it. Okay, so we have looked at, in terms of Dreamhouse, we've looked at the title and what that implies. We've also gotten the impression that what the title would normally imply if it was out of context is completely different to what we're actually going to find. Okay. So I'd like you to go to, like, before the prologue, which is the first Dreamhouse. So the author gives us a quote by Ted Hughes in the novel. It's like 2 pages in. Okay. And the quote by Ted Hughes says, "There is no better way to know us than as two wolves come separately to a wood." Okay, let me just go to my notes quickly. Oh, this is going to display it in the... Okay, well, that's fine. All right. So, something that's very important for us to know, all right? We already know that this poem is going to be written from different perspectives, but also something that we need to know about this quote is that it's called an epigraph, Epigraph. Okay, and you'll find often in novels that it starts with that. It starts with a little quote at the beginning, sometimes a dedication. So our author quoted Ted Hughes, and the whole point of an epigraph is to set the tone, or it hints at the theme or the subject of a text. That's important for us to know. Okay. So if you're looking at the quote, let's read that quote again. There is no better way to know us than as two wolves come separately to a wood. All right. So Ted Hughes apparently was in a relationship with Sylvia Plath. Okay. And he wrote these words when reflecting on his intense relationship with Sylvia Plath in the poem A Modern Proposal. Okay. So this poem was talking about how, like, who is in power over who. You know that when you're dealing with wolves, you're often going to talk about who's the alpha, who's the more dominant, who's the bigger one. So if these are two wolves coming separately into a wood, they're meeting in the wood, but they're also trying to both be alpha. Okay. So what makes this similar to the novel, please write this down, this is very important, is that it deals with similar issues, and those are a longing for truth, okay? You're going to see in this novel that truth is kind of going to be a way of applying dominance on each other, on the different characters. So Look Smart, for example, he arrives thinking that he knows the entire truth, and he's going to expose it to Patricia and Richard. He's going to confront them with the truth that he thinks he knows. He thinks he knows. Okay. Yes. What first? What do you think it does? What did I just say an epigraph does? You're not paying attention, Kabir, because I said this quite clearly. Okay, so an epigraph, can someone else tell me what an epigraph does? Someone who was listening, unlike somebody in this classroom. Who heard what I said, what an epigraph does? Neil, what did you hear me say? Or what did you write down that an epigraph does? Okay. Heineke? Guys, what does what does an epigraph do? Okay, but what does it do? Mm. Thank you, sir. Can we write that down? It suggests what the theme of the book is going to be, the theme, the main idea, what the book is going to be about. So it kind of tells us how we can anticipate in the novel. Okay. Tungai, you're late. Okay. So let's talk again. So what is similar Now we're talking about what is similar in this particular epigraph about these two wolves going into the woods. What is similar about that and the novel? And the first thing that I said is that there is a longing for the truth. Okay, there is a longing for the truth. So for me, I can apply that to Look Smart because he arrives on this farmhouse knowing, well, he thinks he knows the entire truth of something that happened on this farm. And he's going to arrive on the farm and he's going to expose it. And that's why I remember when we read the blurb, we said that his car, we read that his car is facing the farmhouse like a silver bullet. So he's really here to attack, he's here to kill, he's here to expose the truth and to blow up everyone's sense of what they think the truth is. Didn't know what the truth. Yeah, I think this is the biggest thing about the novel that you need to know is that everyone has their own different version of the truth. That's why we had that discussion about memory and how memory is so unreliable. Everyone in the novel has their own understanding of what the truth is, right? And they think they know, but they may not know. And one or two of the characters know the ultimate truth. Okay. So there are people who think they know the truth and they're quite confident in the truth that they think they know. And Look Smart is one of those characters. Kabir, your hand is up. Because they're going to meet, let me just read what the notes say. They're going to meet in the woods. Hughes wrote these words in reflection on his intense relationship with Sylvia Plath in the poem A Modest Proposal. In it, Hughes seems to be autobiographical. The wolves feel a desire for each other. Okay, so when Hughes wrote it, it was about a desire for each other. So that's why they meet. They come into the woods. So they're not going into the woods together, hence the separately, but they're going into the woods to meet in the woods. So there is a desire for each other and they want to be together. But that comes with a sense of danger and they are competing for satisfaction, domination, for fulfillment. So this is in relation to Hugh's relationship with Sylvia Plath. Okay. So do you see how like these wolves also like just desire for like a dominance over each other? And this is what this is going to be about in the novel as well. Although like for me, I don't think that Beauty really wants to dominate anyone and she's the one that actually knows what happened. Spoiler alert. Okay, so that's the first one, a longing for truth. Another one is a desire for revenge or justice. Okay, a sense of power or domination. Now, these last 2 points that I was talking about they seem to me like very Look Smart points about Look Smart. You didn't know Look Smart is one of the characters. You should be reading this novel. Yes, a sense of power or domination. For sure. It's exactly why he's so arrogant and he's so smug. Because he believes that he knows something that Patricia doesn't. And he's coming there to expose it. He's about to like blow everything up, every sense of security that Patricia thought that she had. So that's why he's so yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So maybe just write this down in terms like we are kind of getting off track, but this what Connor's saying is very important. Look Smart and Patricia definitely had a very good relationship when Look Smart was younger. Remember, Look Smart was put through school by Patricia. So Look Smart grew up on the farm. His mother worked on the farm, and Patricia took a liking to Look Smart, and she sort of took him in. paid for his school fees right through high school. He either went to university on a scholarship or she paid for that as well. I don't think that she actually paid for that, but she put him through high school. Okay. So again, about how memory is so unreliable. In Patricia's mind, she sees their relationship the way that Connor is saying now, that they had a good relationship. Like I loved you like you were my child. And Look Smart's not about that life when he arrives on the farm. And he's here to expose all of that. He's there to expose. Okay. And it seems to me like Look Smart. And I've always admired people like this. You know, you get those people that like you'll wrong them, like you'll offend them or you'll hurt them in one way or another, and they'll keep quiet. They won't say anything, and they'll let you think that everything is fine between you. And then one day they just spill and they tell you everything, and it goes against everything that you thought that your relationship was about. Look Smart is that guy. And I really admire those people because I mean they're able to bottle up those true feelings for so long. Whereas whereas I usually just blurt things out as you hurt me. Good luck. Your hand is up. Yes. You can you can argue it as poor communication. I think that just depends on the kind of person that you are and your view on communication. Um I mean, we're called aggro for calling people out on things as they do them. But also there's a lot of things that uh, I think that there's a lot of things that you realize in retrospect and a lot of things you don't realize in the moment. And so there is something to be said about letting things sit for a while before you revisit them. Do you know what I'm saying? So we can say that he's childish, or we can say that he took the time to go out into the real world and to actually to go through like a process of realization um in order to come to the truth, you know? All right. Okay. So we've spoken about a sense of power or dominance, a desire for revenge or justice. We've spoken about longing for the truth, competing for territory. Okay. Remember, Look Smart is not only coming there to go tell the truth. He works for the company that is buying the farm, and that's going to build a gated community. So, so in a way, one may even argue that he probably pushed for that property to be bought, because he wanted to rebuild it and to make it something else. And it's kind of his revenge and his form of dominance. And at some point in the novel, I think he's actually even going to tell Patricia that he works for that company. And this is the night before the house gets demolished and all of that. Okay. And then the last point is the possibility of self-destruction. Okay. All right. Yes. What is the last thing you heard? I said competing for territory. I think I said competing for territory, and then I just made a note that Look Smart works for the company that is buying the land, that is going to destroy the farmhouse and build the new gated community. I think that's what I said. Is that what I said? Everybody? Who's team? That's, it'll do. Sounds like a lot of overanalyzing to me. Get over it, Kabir. You are going to have to write a 600-word essay. I'm just giving you things to talk about. If you think that's overanalyzing, shut. All right. So let's go to the first Dreamhouse. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but it was quite interesting to me that this was by the author and he was speaking as the author, so it's not fictional. So the sort of chapter, the prologue that is just before the novel actually starts. Um, so I'm going to read certain sections of and I'll number it because I don't know how to read Roman numbering. So I'm just going to go page one on the title that says The First Dreamhouse. Miles, are you like straight up on your phone or is like the novel on your phone or You or did you forget that your camera is paused? I've been watching you the whole period going on your phone, and I'm like, maybe the novel's there. All right. So if we look at the first three lines on the first page of the first Dreamhouse, the chapter's called "The First Dreamhouse." It says there are many houses we pass through during our lives. Maybe it's true that they also pass through us. Some of them remain with us, and we are able to return to them long after they're gone. So this is obviously sort of a metaphor. Do you guys want to unpack that a little bit? There are many houses we pass through during our lives. What do you think that that means? Experiences, like through the houses we live in, though. Like, how many times have you guys moved in your lives? I know you're 18 years old. You can't have moved that much. Mohammed, huh? Miles 6 times. Mohammed, 7 times. And in those different houses, do you remember different experiences? Do you remember feeling different ways in those houses? Okay. And some of them are negative experiences and some of them are positive experiences, right? So some of my best childhood memories are in my grandmother's house when we lived in the villages when I was like 2 or 3 years old. I mean, that's where I was potty trained. Those were some of my best memories. As if being potty trained is a best memory. I can see Warren's face. He's like, really? That's what you want to share with us? um, okay, so what he means by we pass through many houses in our lives. I think that we live in different houses, and in those different houses, we create different memories, and all of these houses. And it says that he says that some of these houses pass through us. And I think what he's implying there is that they have different impacts in our lives. And I'm just reminded about actually the village house, my grandmother's house where I lived. For me, those are some of my best memories. And I remember my grandmother used to make this, I think it's a bedi dish. Um, it's essentially pumpkin flavored pap. And I loved it. We used to have it every morning. And my grandmother used to make it every morning. And my brother lived in that same village house, and he actually has negative memories about that house to the point where my brother doesn't eat butternut now as an adult. And it blows my mind that we lived in the same house, but my brother has nothing but negative experiences. But that's because he was a little bit older, and I was like 2 years old, and he had to do chores. And village chores are like going to the woods to get wood. Village chores is herding cattle, and he was 7 years old. So those were not positive memories for him. And one of the impacts is that he, like, if we're going to that village house, he refuses to go. He won't go. And there's other experiences, quite negative experiences that he won't talk about that he had in that house, right? So that's what we're saying. That's what I'm saying about houses pass through us. They have certain impacts on us. They make certain changes on us, and they change our worldview. Mohammed, your hand is up. Like what? Uh-huh. Yeah, for sure. But also the house being a physical representation of all your experiences and a physical representation of the people that lived in that house. Okay. All right. Um, so this is how he starts the section of the novel, and then he talks about a farmhouse that he went to visit. Okay, and the entire dream house is actually based on this, and he talks about his childhood and about how he actually went to this boarding school in KZN. Waruna, you want to say something? You're muted. I can't hear you. Okay. Um, so he says one such house was a farmhouse in KwaZulu-Natal, just over the hill of the boarding school I attended between the age of 10 and 14. This hill stood above our school like a promise of another world. It provided the title of a novel of mine simply called The Hill, and now it lies buried under a pine plantation. So he remembers befriending people, his family befriending people that lived on this farmhouse, and the woman that lived on this farmhouse inviting him, because how many of you are term boarders? What are the rules for term boarders at St. David's? How often can you go home over the weekend? Oh, you're all weekend boarders, so you have to go home every weekend. Okay. So you get term boarders that actually stay because they stay further away from home, and so they stay over the weekend. They stay at school. And I remember I was a term boarder in primary school, and there's one weekend a month or one weekend a term where you're allowed to go home, and that's called the out weekend. Um, and so our author on his out weekends would be fetched by this lady who lived on the farm, and he would stay on the farm over the weekend. And he speaks quite fondly. If you read the rest of this section, he speaks quite fondly about the farm. He speaks about going fishing on the farm. He would go like all of these adventures that he would have on this farm. And he speaks quite fondly about them and remembering them well. And you'll see some of the memories that he talks about in this section are actually remembered quite negatively by Look Smart. For me, it seems that the author, as being the term boarder, is a lot like Look Smart. Check here. If you go on to the next page, for example, it says there's a lot of characters that he's taken from real life and he's applied to the novel. The farmer was a man from Yorkshire originally. He had a strong, impenetrable accent, pale blue eyes, and was always making jokes that insinuated themselves just around the borders of my comprehension. He was forever hinting at something sexual, it seemed to me, and I tended to smile at him whenever he looked in my direction, hoping to reassure him that I was quite fine as I was, and he needn't bother himself with me. This farmer that he's describing here, who does that sound like in the novel? What on Richard? Okay, this is Richard, because Richard was also from the UK. I'm not sure what particular area. Okay, and there was and you're gonna see there was something dodgy about Richard even before he had dementia. There was something very, very dodgy. In the present, Richard has dementia. He doesn't know who he is, where he is. He has some lucid moments. Um, and he's just the freak show in the novel. Okay. Then it talks about the farmer's wife who was a large woman, and she was quite friendly and quite nice towards him. Check here towards the end of the page. Um, he says he uses a lot of phrases like "I'm not sure," and he says "I forget the details." I think that speaks to also that how unreliable memories are. And I think for the most part, the author remembers the farmhouse fondly. And there may be bad things that happened there that he simply doesn't remember. Okay. If you look at the second last paragraph, still on that page about the farmer, he says, I'm not sure that the house made much impression on me at first, as there was so much going on inside it, and I must have been worried about going to a new school. But the farmer's wife said I should come and visit them on my first Sunday out. I could come for lunch and learn how to catch a fish. This is like a perfect description of Look Smart. Because Look Smart, it says here, she says that she invited him to come and catch a fish to learn how to go fishing. Look Smart was taught how to these are some of the activities that Patricia would did with Look Smart when he was younger. Okay, there's a paragraph at the bottom. On the day in question, the farmer's wife was there to meet me outside the school library. She was in a large cream Mercedes, and even then, the car was being driven by a driver, Becky. So this real life Becky is the fictional Becky in the novel, who's also a driver, who also wore blue overalls and drove for Patricia. Okay, and also he never said a word, who wore neat blue overalls and never said a word. I sat in the back between two Alsatians. Patricia has two dogs as well, or three dogs. Is it three or two dogs? She's got dogs. Okay, that sat in the back of the car. Okay. So he remembers this farmhouse quite fondly. He talks about how he would go fishing and he found caves. um, like all these wonderful things that he learned and that resulted in. And for me, I find it quite weird that he remembers the house fondly, but we're going to go into the novel and all of those memories of going fishing and finding caves and all these adventures. Look Smart is not going to remember those things fondly. He's not going to remember them as good things, and we'll see in the novel that he doesn't actually remember them as good memories. Okay, so all right, and then also he wrote a play called Dream of a Dog, and he immediately and that developed into the novel itself. So I just found this section of the novel quite interesting because it like for me it just reminds me that when we write or when writers write they draw from their own experiences, they draw a little bit from their own memories, okay, and it's just another branch to memories and what we do with memories and what we do with those feelings. We can adapt it into something a lot more um creative. Does anyone have any more questions, any questions or anything that you'd like to contribute? Someone has unmuted. Hit me. Someone unmute their mic. Someone keeps muting and unmuting their mic. Hey, you have a question? Go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What do you mean? Exactly. I think, Miles? Yeah. So I agree with Miles. It's loosely based. It's not his story. Okay. It's not the author writing about his actual experience. I think he's using some of those settings for the story. Okay. But for me, I think that it speaks very true of the fact that we can experience the same memories in different ways. So the author isn't Look Smart because he's a white man, and Look Smart was a black boy who was put through school. He was looked after by his own family and so on. But it just goes to show like how we can remember things completely different and we can experience things in completely different ways. Put Mohammed in his house with his family and he'll have certain memories, but put me in his house with his family and I'll have a different experience or the same experience. Okay. All right. So talk to me about like what we have spoken about now has got you thinking about and what has it got you curious about in terms of the novel. Why do you have a hamster profile picture, Amani? Ryan, you go. Yeah, yeah. And you'll see what beauty does with that truth. Nothing. She does nothing with it. Sorry, another spoiler alert. Beauty, yeah. And she doesn't even laugh at it or anything. She just like she knows what she knows and she just doesn't say anything. But I think that speaks to disempowerment, but we'll get there. What else has this got you thinking about, Dale? Mm-hmm. And I get the sense that he's trying to be dominant over everyone. So Patricia and even Beauty herself. Like he thinks that he knows everything, and he doesn't realize that he's missing. There's a lot he's actually missing about Grace and about what happened to Grace. He's missing a lot of details around that, and but he still acts. And this is the significance of his name. He acts like he knows everything. He looks smart. Like yeah. So he thinks that he has all this dominance and power, and he actually has none of it. None. Yes. What? Mm. So what do you think? So what we do know for sure is that each chapter is written from each character's perspective, right? Hey? No, so it's not quite like it's not a dialogue because the people on it's a change of point of view. We'll talk about that in the next lesson because we have like 3 minutes left. But there is definitely a change of point of view, okay? And I want you to think about the relationship between that, the change of point of view, okay? The relationship between that and memory and how we remember things. How we remember things and how we can end this lesson and I can think to myself as a teacher, I can think to myself, oh, best lesson ever. But Miles can be like, what a waste of my time. I learned absolutely nothing. I just wanted to text my girlfriend or whatever. Or this lesson left me more confused. So the change of perspective helps us to see my side, but it also helps us to see Miles's side and all the different sides of the story. Am I making sense-ish? Okay. So we'll talk about point of view tomorrow. Connor, you have something to say? Connor. Okay. Okay, so tomorrow we'll talk about perspective and we'll talk about like the relationship between that and why it's important to do that. Neil, calmness. Okay. Boys, in theory, you have a week to do the blog and to do the film studies essay. You are supposed to get started. Okay, I've made the necessary comments on your questions. Get started, right? And the thing is, treat the writing of the essay the way you treated the question formulating. Just write. And as you're writing, the ideas will come to you and you'll readjust and rearrange, but just write. Don't spend too much time thinking about it. And also, do not go and read some other source because I promise you, you're going to use those same words and you're going to plagiarize. And you remember the mess with the plagiarism last year. Okay. Ryan, I can hear you clearly. I think, I don't know yet. I think we are going to do it through Moodle probably. Yeah, it really was. Canva? Huh? Okay. Mohammed, the rest of you get out. Period's over. Bye. Mohammed, unless you have questions. Sure, 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 sure. Mohammed, you have a question. Neil, you have questions. After the comment I made. Okay. Mohammed, stop talking about wrong or right. We're talking about what works and what doesn't work. So stop talking about you being wrong. You've still given you like you may not have been on the right track, but you still gave a starting point. So stop talking about wrong and right. Ooh, I can stop recording now. Let me, okay. I'll have a look during the course of the